The name of Kopen Amirbek is closely intertwined with the satirical genre. Working in the leading national publications, he made a huge contribution to the development of this sphere. The author of several books, laureate of the Presidential Prize, holder of the Parasat Award and honored worker of Kazakhstan, Kopen Amirbek answered the questions of the Culture Talks program. The age of 60 is called the prime of the life. What can you tell about the age of 70? What do you think about most of all, and what you would not like to think about? Our ancestors said, "You are like a lamb frolicking on a summer pastures at 15 years old. You are like a reed on a lake at 20. You are like a water stream flowing down from mountain peaks at 30. You are like a horse on a leash staring into the distance at 40. At the age of 50, you are like a nomad that has just stopped at a new place. The age of 60 is like a velvet season, and at 70, you are like астында looking for an oasis in the land of желілерден. However, there are almost no catchphrases about the age of 80, 90 and 100 for some reason, probably because the strength and power of a person is already running out. Therefore, 70 years for me is like searching for the very promised land that астында was looking for. It's time when you already think about how much water has flowed under the bridge, about the fact that you have already passed the period when you had to look for your promised land. Accordingly, the 70th anniversary is like a large ship that does not lower its sails. You are still able to sail along the waves of life, and you have not yet run out of energy. 70 years is still sailing age. The Qazaq said, "Do not regret the past, it will not return. Only the Almighty knows what will happen in the future. The present moment is the stepping stone to a happy tomorrow." Sometimes it seems to me that we, without stepping over the steps, seem to be marking time. If I was born again, I would spend all my time on my works. I have no other regrets. Do satirists complain of fatigue? Do you work much? My teacher, Muzaffar Alimbayev, often told me, "Kopen, don't waste your time. Write at least one page a day. There are 365 days in a year, and then you will write 365 pages annually. You always have to hone your skills, and if you stop, your abilities will be dulled like a knife." Kadir Mirzaliyev also spoke about this. I knew his creative laboratory well, and he told me, "When I wake up, I'm in a state of inspiration, and I sit down at my desk without even shaving. Only when I am very tired and can no longer write anything efficient, only then I go to shave, because it doesn't take a lot of time to shave. This is about how to allocate your resources efficiently. Even cows sometimes run out of milk. Likewise, satirists get tired. They write fruitfully, but sooner or later they pause. If you compare the sunrise is your early days, midday is your youth, a period of inspiration and a time when a person is at the very dawn of strength, and then evening when the heat subsides, and at this time nature no longer blooms. A human is also like nature. When Sirbai Maulenov turned 50, he realized a collection called Midday, and then we all thought that he called the 50th anniversary the period of dawn. After this collection, his work gradually, like the rays of the sun, began to fade away. Human nature is the same. You always make people laugh. Have you ever ruined something while trying to make people laugh? Бауыржан Момышұлы said, "Laughter has no enemy that it cannot defeat." Just recently, in Kostanay region, we held a satire festival named after Sayit Kenji Akhmetov. He said, "The ability to laugh is life. The ability to amuse is art. To be the object of ridicule is death." And now I will answer your question. Sometimes, being impressed or experiencing strong feelings, you say something unintentionally, and people misunderstand your thoughts. This does not happen at the time of writing, but when you speak improvisingly. In such cases, you need to be careful. I want to say that our teacher, Sadikbek Adambekov, who wrote the first Kazakh satirical novel, was by nature a very playful person and was constantly joking. So even Mukhtar Awezov said that demons are hiding under every hair of Sadikbek's beard. Once, trying to joke, he offended Gabidan Mustafin. Later, he decided to correct this awkward situation, and at one meeting of writers, he went to the stage and said, "With its 4-grade education, the Soviet education system is known by 3 classics. The first is Maxim Gorky, the second is Gabidan Mustafin, and the third is me." Gabidan Mustafin took this with a smile because he seemed to like these words. He invited Sadikbek to his house and warmly received him. It's all about finding the way to the heart of a person. Therefore, sometimes there are people who do not interpret my good intentions and words quite correctly. I sometimes think that jokes are also a kind of burden. And then, who takes offense at jokes? A guilty person or a sinful person? Kazakhs say that scorpions think that everyone bites. Some of my heroes think that I, like a poisonous scorpion, bite everyone with words. Therefore, jokes are jokes, but they have a tremendous educational value. The Kazakhs have always been patient with this. There was a story about 2 men in my village. They were gluttons and were always so hungry that they ate both hot and cold food. One day they returned from a long journey. Their daughter-in-law met them and decided to play a joke. She took wooden plates and pouring them hot soup, she said that he had been waiting for the arrival of guests for so long that the food had already cooled down. Answering that this was no problem, one of them grabbed a spoon, scooped up soup from a bowl and swallowed as hard as he could. He burned himself to tears. When she asked him what had happened, he replied that he remembered about his father's illness and therefore cried. He was simply afraid to say what really happened. He was proud, and when the second guy sipped a spoonful of soup, he also shed tears because he burnt himself. Then she asked what happened to him. He said to the first man, "It seems to me that your father has just passed away." This is how patient our ancestors were and how they knew how to get out of situations with humor. Even if they were burned, they did not talk about it. Being among writers, poets, playwrights and journalists, satirists, even burning in life, never speak about it directly, because their genre is satire.
Ağzı kuysa da ağzын kuytып айтқан емес. Өйткені оның жанры сатира.
Абайсызда мысалы өз басыңыз біреудің көңілін қалдырып қойсаңыз.
If you offend someone with your words, then do try to make amends.
Мен негізінен өзі көңілін қалдырмауға тырысамын. Керісінше маған
In general, I try not to offend anyone. On the contrary, those who envy me sometimes try to harm me. This happens because we are all living people and there is no getting away from it. This happened with my friends when they dug a hole for me behind my back, but I have never been at enmity with them. On the contrary, I do something good in return to people who do me harm. Then they feel ashamed, they understand their mistakes, and in the end, we even continue to be friends with some of them. Kazakhs say, answer to evil deeds with good deeds.
Таспен ұрғанды аспен ұр дейді. Осы сөз-ақ қой.
Сізді білмейтін, сізбен емен жарқын әңгімелеспеген кісі.
A person who does not know you is unlikely to guess that you are a satirist. In general, do you purposefully make people laugh, or does it happen by itself?
Қарық қылуды мақсат тұтатын адамсыз ба, әлде?
Мен ондайды ойлаған емеспін. Осы мен біреу күлдірейін, немесе бірдеңені білдірейін деп ешқашанда мен ойлаған емеспін. Сол ортаға байланысты.
I did not think about that. I have no purpose to make people laugh. It all depends on the environment and what is happening around, and jokes are born by themselves. This is a natural process. You cannot achieve this by some effort of will. It seems to me that this is inherited somewhere at the genetic level. It is bad when you try to do something through force.
Совет одағының гимн, әнұран, шүрет жазған Сергей Михалков қандай өмірбаянын оқысаңыз тектей. Ғажап. Неге? Әскерде жүргенде Сталин Совет Одағының гимнінің
If you read the biography of Sergei Mikhalkov, who composed the words of the anthem of the Soviet Union, you will understand that this is something extraordinarily beautiful. When he was in the army, Stalin announced a competition to write the anthem of the Soviet Union. Then a soldier, a young guy whom no one knew, wrote poetry and sent it. Among 600 poets, the text of Sergei Mikhalkov was chosen, which eventually became the anthem. When Stalin invited him to his office, he began to worry that he had done something and might be shot. When he came to Stalin, he told him, "I congratulate you. Your text has been approved. Now ask what you want." He could ask for a car, an apartment, or some special living conditions. But Mikhalkov replied that he needed nothing and only asked for a pen, with which Stalin signed a document on the approval of the anthem. All Soviet newspapers wrote about this. He instantly became famous. Why? Because Stalin gave him the pen he used to work with. This incident has educational overtones. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, when Mikhalkov was already over 90, this pen was sold in America at an auction of things belonging to famous people for $1.5 million. So in every business, there is a benefit. A person should not be asking. Asking is the same as selling oneself. If you live without asking anyone for anything, then sooner or later you will face prosperity.
Адам ешқашанда айтады ғой мына көзін сатып деген. Көзін сату деген ол өзін сату деген сөз. Алақаныңды жайып осы бірдеңе дәметіп жүргеннен гөрі тап-таза жүрсең сенің артыңнан қуып келеді Бағдәулет. Немесе алдыңнан тосып тұрады. You
have already quoted Sayed Kenji Akhmetov's statement that the ability to laugh is life, the ability to amuse is art, to be the object of ridicule is death. Are you personally afraid of ridicule?
Біздің бабамыз айтқан, «Я Алла, досқа таба, дұшпанға күлкі қыла көрме» деп жалынған ғой, жалбарынған.
Of course I think about it. Who wants to be ridiculed? No one. Our ancestors prayed to God, "Do not let us be humiliated by enemies and become a mockery for friends." They prayed to God for it. A satirist competition has been held in Bulgaria in the city of Gabrovo over the last 50 years. People come there from all over the world, from China, from Brazil, from the USA. Kazakhstan's satirists never went there. We even did not perform at the level of the Soviet Union. In the center of the city, there is a house in which a satirical edition works. On the facade of this house, it is inscribed, "Humor will save the world." We know Dostoevsky's words that beauty will save the world. What is beauty? Your disposition, honor and conscience. That is what makes you beautiful. What genre exposes the human essence and jokes about shamelessness and immorality? It is satire. That inscription about humor has a deep meaning. Therefore, this is the right genre. Today, organized crime, corruption, envy, insidiousness, wastefulness are widespread in the world. We cannot find a cure for these diseases of society. One of the drugs that can kill at least one infection is humor. Perhaps in Kazakhstan or Central Asia, some kind of a satire center should be opened. There are 54 state theaters and 18 satire theaters in Kazakhstan, but there is no one that would have a state status, neither in Almaty nor in Nur Sultan. There is a state theater in Aktobe called Yekiyezu and Shansha in Shymkent, but they both work at the regional level. But why not raise them to Republican proportions? We need to do this.
міне әңгіме осы.
You often travel around the country. Is this a habit, or do you really have a lot to do in different parts of our country?
Елді көп аралайтыным мен білмеймін, өзі шақырата жатады. Батысы да, шығысы да, оңтүстігі де, солтүстігі де тойға емес.
I don't know why, but people constantly invite me. I travel to the west, to the east, to the south, to the north of the country. They call not for celebrations like weddings, but for good creative gatherings of humor. People often ask to support one or another humorous theater that is just opening. I go, meet people, try to help as much as I can. But I never pursue the goal of making money on it. I travel with pure intent to help. In addition, there used to be a satire magazine, Arna Bumblebee, which was published with a circulation of more than 700,000 copies. Kopen Amirbek said when I worked there, if a bumblebee stings, a wound will remain. And when there were no complaints, I constantly traveled to the regions to find out who was right and who was wrong. He calmed down, wiped away the tears, rescued the innocent, and punished insolent. I spent 25 years of my life to these concerns, absolutely useless for me personally. From 25 to 50 years, I did all this. The expression "Kopen is coming" came from this. Before me there were my colleagues, and apparently it was possible to come to an agreement with them, so the cases were often closed. Therefore, when I was there, they always said, "Kopen is coming." I got to the satisfaction that I understood all these situations and could restore justice. And so my youth passed. This is where the phrase "Kopen is coming" came from, and the people love me for this, and therefore I'm constantly invited everywhere. Are there many real satirists today, or are there more of those who only consider themselves to be satirists? I'll tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a great master of the comedy genre, Charlie Chaplin. And at the very dawn of his career, he announced a competition for his doubles. This competition brought together 20 people exactly like him. He also decided to secretly take part in this competition. The most interesting thing is that the real Charlie Chaplin took only second place in the competition for his own doubles. Why am I talking about this? Because the judges do not give the correct assessment. This happens in life and in many areas, when the real Chaplin is relegated to the second place. Therefore, it is not me and not you that decide who is a real satirist and who is not. It must be asked from the people. The people are a sieve. Satirists are flour. You sift through a sieve, and clean flour is separated from all the rest of the debris. After finishing work on the novel War and Peace, Leo Tolstoy said, "Now Russian literature will have a rest for many years." Similarly, after Kopen Amirbek, Said Kenji Akhmetov, I think Kazakh satire went on vacation for many years. Gabbas Kambisholi, who has never been afraid of anything, will soon turn 90. Minbai Raj has already turned 90. Who's there among the young humorists? Most of them were turned into a mass of artistic satire. They, not thinking of leaving a trace, chased after money. Therefore, one must have pure intentions. Once an ant was walking somewhere and was asked where it was going. It replied that it wanted to make a pilgrimage and went to Mecca, Medina. Hearing the answer, they only laughed at it and said that it would not reach and would die halfway. Then the ant said, "God alone knows where I will get there or not, but even if I don't get there, then my intention to die on the way to Mecca is above all blessings." Therefore, if we talk about Kazakh satire, we are also ants. Perhaps we will succeed, perhaps not. Now ant cubs are already appearing. I think someone will definitely come to the Mecca of Kazakh satire. This is our hope.
Біздің қазақтың өзіне жарасатын.
The Kazakhs, of course, have their own special humor. Tell me, what is its peculiarity?
Қазақ халқының ерекшелігі оның табиғатының тазалығында. Ешқандай қоспасы жоқ. Дүниедегі ең қымбат металл алтын дейді ғой. Алтынның өз түрі болады. Айтайын саған.
The peculiarity of Kazakh humor is in the purity of its nature. There are no additives. The most precious metal in the world is gold, but gold can be of different fineness, 380, 530, and the most valuable is the gold of fineness 900. Kazakhs call it delda, without additives. Here is Kazakh satire. It is also of the highest standard. It is without impurities and any additives. But we lost it all. Therefore, whatever Kazakh joke you take, it was pure and beautiful. And today we have lost just such a crystal clear satire. Now if you listen to the jokes of the younger generation, they are empty, rude. If you heard the jokes of Sabit Mukhanov, Mukhtar Awazov, Mukagali Makatayev, Tamanbai Moldagaliyev, Kadir Mirzaliyev, there was not a drop of lies in their jokes. Then the son-in-law and sister-in-law were joking with each other. Today's jokes are impossible to listen to. They are rude. They cannot even be uttered aloud.
Бүгін ғана хабарласты, баспадан күллі қазақ күлкісі дегенді мен жинап жүредім. О, бейімбет майлінен бастап асқар тоқымановтың кешегі осы.
There is nothing funny about them. I collected all the Kazakh jokes from the time of Beimbet Mailin to the present day, and recently Publishing House asked me to release the book. If we publish this book, then it will be like this. Reading this book, Kazakhs will roll on the floor laughing. Kazakhs say 7 talents are too little for the jigget. What talents do you have that we don't know about? If we talk about talents, then I love history. I'm often praised and you are praised when they see you. But I am sometimes ashamed of it. Why? I grew up in a village and we had wise Aksakals. There was Yekiya Koja, the greatest man, and he always told very instructive stories. He said, if someone praises you, pray to yourself. Allah, forgive me for what they have no knowledge. He said, no need to boast. There is no sinless person. One person once said to a saint, I have neither guilt nor sin. I am a pure man. And a saint man answered him, then go to 40 places and collect 40 stones the size of a grain and a large black stone the size of a cauldron. He did it and brought them to the saint. But he asked to return all these stones to where he took them from. But he couldn't do it. He just put the big black stone back in its place and he did not know what to do with small stones. Therefore, any person always has his own disadvantages, which only he knows about. Everyone has own dirty little secret, like that big black stone. Our ancestors said not to speak bad of anyone, not to use foul language. And it is each of these little 40 stones that people do not consider as a sin. Therefore, when they ask me about my facets that others do not know about, these are all these stones taken together, both small and large. But only I know about this big black stone. But I won't tell anyone about it. Let's continue our conversation with a good anecdote that once made you laugh. There are a lot of such anecdotes. I don't even know which one to tell you. So let me tell you a story that made me laugh. In youth, when we met poets and writers somewhere, they began to recite their poems. My first book was published in 1977. One day, when I was 27 years old, I was coming from the Writers' Union office and met Kadir Mirzaliyev. I greeted him and said, I wrote a good poem. May I read it to you? He saw that I was delighted and said that I had made a good verse. I asked in bewilderment how he knew that it was good, as he hadn't listened. And he answered, "You said yourself that you wrote a good poem." When my first book was published, I laughed at this story.
рахаттанып күлгенім осы еді.
Уақытыңызды бөліп сұхбат бергеніңізге үлкен алғыс айтамыз.
Thank you very much for the interview. We wish you good luck.
Ал біз бүгінгі бағдарламаны аяқтаймыз.
Dear viewers, you can watch the full version of this interview on the Qazaq TV channel on YouTube. Subscribe and like. See you.